Hey everybody, I think we're live now. So I'll wait a minute and let people come in as they're going to. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Project Hail Mary and talking about our thoughts about the story and everything. So pop in and say hi. My phone is making noise. I have to drink my tea in my insulated cup because it is so cold in here right now. Hi, Dania. That my phone let me know that my new phone will be here on Monday. Awesome. My puppy ate my phone. It works. Like, I can use it, but it has like a green, you can't see. There's a green line. Yeah, you do hear Spike. He can hear me talking, and he is not happy that he's not in here. But yeah, my new phone will be here in a couple of days, and I'm so happy because this one, I have to keep it awake at all times if I'm going to be using it, because once it goes to sleep, I can only wake back up by rebooting it, which is super annoying. Anyway, let's try to stay on topic. So, hi, Heather. Oh, thanks for commenting on my sweater. This is like my favorite sweater. It just makes me happy when I see it. I don't know what, it's dinosaurs. I'm silly. But anyway, let's talk about Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, otherwise known as my newest favorite sci-fi novel. I thought this was just fantastic. I loved it so much. Like, this is already, I'm already predicting this being at least in my top 10 books of the year, if not like my favorite book of the year, which is just ridiculous. It was January. So, but I thought this was just such a fun story. And it also helped me to kind of like figure out what it is that I like about science fiction books, because I don't read a ton of sci-fi, but when I do, I either love it or hate it. And this definitely fell into the love it camp. And I think I've been thinking about this like all day as I've been like contemplating what I'm going to talk about. But I think what it is that I loved about this and in this kind of story in general is I like stories where, especially in sci-fi, I like stories where they're just like doing stuff in space and there's aliens, but like they all get along and everyone's kind of like working together on a problem. I just love that. And I was thinking about like what other book that is similar to this that I've loved, and it would have to be The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And for similar reasons. Like, they're very different stories. Like, they are not the same, but they have a lot of similar feelings where you're in space, you've got not a crew in this one, but you have like different species of beings working together and like getting along. I don't know. I really, really like that a lot. So that, I think, is what I'm looking for in sci-fi. So if you guys know of any other books I should pick up that are like that, let me know, because it's not a genre that I've read a ton of, but now that I kind of have a feeling of what I'm going to like about that genre, I want more of that. So, but yeah, this was so much fun. And like, I kind of want to try to like discuss the pieces of it that I liked, but also like, it's been 2 weeks since I read it, and I'm a little fuzzy on like details. But what I loved about it was Ryland has a great voice, but also his relationship with Rocky, I think, was what made this. I'm gonna put this down. Is what made this like such a great story. I don't know, like, if I'll ever find a book that's just like that again. In that, like, I don't, it was just magical. And also I listened to it as an audiobook, and I don't know, I thought the narration of that was just like, is there like an award for audiobooks? Like, can they win awards based on that kind of stuff? Because I felt like that audiobook was probably the best audiobook I've ever listened to, and I haven't listened to a ton of audiobooks, to be fair, but that one was just so good. Like, it needs to win awards for like that. The narration of it was so perfect. Like, he just captured everything so well. It was amaze, amaze, amaze. Just the way they did Rocky's voice in it was just, I smiled the whole time I was listening to it. Talk about like the happiest book you can be reading at the beginning of a year. Like it was perfect for that. I try to write down notes, but my notes make no sense to me then other than looking at it. So needless to say, I gave this 5 stars because I just thought it was so good. And I did find discussion questions, but I figured I'd just run through my notes first, which are complete nonsense, but I'm going to work on making the best of it. I loved the way alien language was done in the story. And I just thought that was so interesting. Like, I think we tend to envision life on other planets being just like us and thinking like us and speaking like us and doing, and in the story, I think he did capture that. Like, they do still, like, they have friends, they have relationships, but I thought it was so interesting the way, like, they speak and the way they have studied things and the things they didn't know. I just thought that was really, really clever. And there is an audio award. I didn't know about that. Awesome. Oh, I hope it won. Does anyone know? Has they done it for 2021 yet? Because if it didn't win, I'm sad. Cassandra says, I passed over this book a few times thinking I wouldn't like it. I'm happy it was a book club pick because it made me pick it up and I absolutely loved it. Honestly, I picked it because I wanted to make myself read it. I loved The Martian. I read The Martian, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago. It's been a while. And I really liked that. I own but haven't read Artemis. But I feel like Artemis is one of those books that like most people don't like. So I haven't read it because of that. But my son loved it and wants me to read it. So I'm going to force myself to pick that up. But yeah, I'm so glad I made myself read this. And I'm so glad I made all of you read it. So yeah, that's awesome. Yes. Oh, Spencer, I agree. The details. I think that's what makes Andy Weir's books so great is one, he writes science in a way that keeps it from becoming too boring. I've read some sci-fi that I've hated that I felt was too heavy-handed with the science in a way that made me like not want to continue reading it. Like I would get bored or fall asleep and try to skim ahead. And there is a lot of science in Andy Weir's books. And this one I thought too got a little on the mathy side, which was making me nervous because I'm not a mathy person. But I felt like he writes it in a way that it enhances a story rather than takes away from it. And I love too that like it's all fairly accurate. He's not making stuff up. It's real science. So, but which makes me wonder, like, could all these things happen? But I don't know. I really liked the way the story was structured. I thought that was really well done. I really Piranesi, is that how you say that? I'm not sure. One for 2021 for the audio awards. That's a book on my list that I haven't gotten to yet. I should probably listen to that. Then if it won an award for the audiobook, I bet it's probably really good. So I will have to look that one up. Spencer, I agree too. The science, though, the science in The Martian, which I did read with my eyeballs, I thought was done in a way that it kept me like reading and it kept my attention. So I can't say that I wouldn't have had trouble with it in the book if I'd been reading it with my eyes. I don't know. But yeah, I thought the way it was done in the audiobook was really good. So I'm going to go ahead and look at. Oh, I have one more note. I can't even pay attention to my own notes. I have one more thing I wanted to mention just in my thinking, or two more things. I wanted to talk about the comparison as far as like what was happening on Earth and why they were on this mission. I kept thinking while I was sitting here today, contemplate what we were going to talk about. I kept thinking about the movie Don't Look Up. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I feel like at this point most people have, so hopefully I don't spoil anything. But the movie Don't Look Up was a very like negative, I guess, view of what would happen in a disaster, whereas this book was a very positive view about what would happen in a disaster. So I kept like comparing them to each other, thinking like one was the cynical take and one was the hopeful take, and like what would happen, which one of those is accurate? What would actually happen in a disaster of this nature? Like, could we as humans work together the way they did in Project Hail Mary and be patient enough to wait for the results of what happens in the story? Like I kept thinking throughout the book, like, what's happening on Earth? How are people managing this? Because it had been years while he was away and figuring all of this stuff out. Years and years and years had passed. What was happening? How are they managing on Earth? Like, what came of all of this? Like, I would imagine they received what he got done and what he solved and then fixed it. But in the meantime, like, what happens on Earth? Does it look hopeful or does it look like Don't Look Up? I just kept thinking about that a lot throughout the story, like wondering what was going on. Okay, so I did find some book club questions, so I thought I would run through these so we can talk about it. So the first question says, there are so many novels and movies about space. What is it about space that fascinates people around the world? I'm going to say it's the mystery of it. We don't know what's out there. It's kind of like the ocean. Like, we're always going to be fascinated with a thing we don't know enough about. So I would say that, like, that's the reason we keep talking and writing and reading about space, is because there's so much scope for the imagination, to quote Anne Shirley, that, like, we have to just wonder what else is out there. Iridians, like, is that a thing that's out there? Astrophage, like, what else could we find out in space? I think the oceans are scarier because it's a little closer to home. Like, you can go to the beach and step into the ocean, but what's under there? Like, we're a lot less likely to go out into space as we are about going into the ocean. Okay, and the next question wants to know, did you read The Martian and how did this book compare to it? I remember really liking The Martian. It's been a while since I've read it, but I think I like this one better. I feel like this is a better version of that story. Like, I mean, Andy Weir's thing is writing a lone man out in the wilderness of space, figuring things out and trying to survive. So I think this was a better story because he wasn't alone. I liked the dynamic between Rylan and Rocky, and that was what made the story great, I think. That instead of it just being him trying to solve all the problems, he had someone to bounce ideas off of and somebody who thinks in a very different way. So I found that whole thing fascinating. So I think this is better. I think if I were to rank them now, like give them star ratings right now, I would probably give The Martian like 4.5 stars, but this one gets 5 stars. Ugh, Mickey, yes, I had to kind of not think too hard about what Rocky looks like because spiders freak me out. I am terrified of spiders. So I kept trying to like not think too hard about it. But I will say, I don't know, what is it called? Now I can't think of the name of it. Gregor the Overlander? Is that the name of that series that Suzanne Collins wrote? That I've only read the first book in that series, but she made these cockroaches that were gigantic, like human-sized cockroaches. Cute. Like, I was endeared by them. They were precious. And I hate cockroaches. So for me, Rocky kind of falls into that category. Like, if I don't think too hard about the fact that he's a spider, then I'll be fine. But technically, he's not a spider because he doesn't have 8 legs. So, more bug-like, I think, than spider-like. I'm very, very, very curious to see what they do with that in the movie, because it could be interesting. Aha, you didn't like that in Gregor. Okay, well, I thought it was cute. I don't know. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, only Suzanne Collins could have made me feel like cockroaches are cute, because that would never happen in real life. Okay, the next question says, we meet Ryland when he wakes up all alone on the spaceship. He's suffering from select amnesia and is slowly piecing together what happened. Why do you think the author decided to tell the story in this way? And how did the slow reveal help to build tension? I thought that was so smart. I just thought, like, that's a great way to explain what's happening. I don't know that we would have liked Ryland as much right off the bat if we knew that that's how he ended up out there in space. Like, I don't know. But I just thought it was a really smart way to go about that. And I also really like in stories when I'm kind of figuring things out right along with the main character. Like, I like that that he didn't know what was going on either. So it was nice to kind of have that element of storytelling. Oh, Rebecca, yes, I agree. The part where Rocky asks him to watch over him when he slept. Yes. I thought that was like the most endearing thing ever, like that they need to watch each other. And I keep thinking, like, all the time, my puppy is just like that. Spike is also part Arrrghian, I think, because he will not sleep if I'm not in the room. So somebody has to be in the room with him or he will not go to sleep. He will, like, keep waking himself up. He will bark and whine until someone sits down nearby and then he'll go to sleep. So I think he's part Arrrghian. Okay, let's move on to the next question. We eventually learn that Ryland is a science teacher after he left his career as a molecular biologist. Let's talk about why Ryland left the field and found solace in teaching. I thought, the way I read it, I thought he went to teaching because it gave him the opportunity to impart information that he knew without being judged for whether he was right or not. Like, he had been burned, I guess, and I think he wrote a paper that people didn't believe was true or whatever, and I'm probably getting that wrong because it's been a couple of weeks since I read it, but I want to say that, like, he was, like, not disgraced, but disappointed in how his paper was taken in the science community. So he went to teaching because it was a way for him to still be involved in science without having to, like, come up with anything new. He was clearly a brilliant thinker to be able to manage what he did in space. Yes, water not being necessary. Thank you. I'm sitting here trying to think, what was it? Yeah. Thank you. Yes. He wanted out of academia because people couldn't handle his paper about how water-based life forms weren't the only kind of life forms. Thank you. Yes. So I don't know. To me, the teaching was just a way to still be involved in science in some capacity where he didn't have to come up with new ideas and new things. And I thought that was actually a great way to do that. Like, we need good science teachers. So I thought that was great. It was smart for him to do that. The next question is, why did Strat recruit Rylan to help with the task force of finding out what is dimming the sun? Spencer, same. My brain has not been what it used to be as of late. So the fact that I'm like retaining information from this book means I really, really, really liked it a lot. I was able to focus my attention on it for so long. Yeah, I think Strat recruited Rylan because she read his paper and maybe thought he might know something that others didn't. I don't know. I wondered about that. Like, she seemed to put a lot of trust in him. And I do think he was very smart, but I'm not sure. Maybe I missed something why she would put so much trust in him. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Why did Strat have so much faith in him? Ah, Mickey. Yes, I think she thought he was more open to the unknown. That's a good idea. I like that. That maybe he wouldn't be like maybe too sure of himself and pushing his own ideas and agenda. I don't know. Spencer says he knew just enough to maybe be helpful, but was expendable enough at the beginning to mess about with an alien for the first time. That's a good point. Yes. Because they did give him some jobs to do that seemed rather dangerous. So, yeah. Vicky says not bogged down by academic requirements. What did you guys think of Strat as a character? I found her to be a kind of scary, but also like really brilliant person. Like she just did everything and put it all into motion, and I don't know. I kind of wanted more of Strat. Obviously, we couldn't get more than what we got, but yeah, she was very intense. I wonder how the mission would have gone had Strat been out with him. Yes, I agree, Spencer. I wish I had half her ability to just make a choice and do it. Yes, and the fact that the choices she was making were so like life altering was wild. Like, I don't know that I could never handle a high stress situation like that. I would be a complete mess. I'd be useless because I wouldn't be able to function. I'm fairly indecisive as it is in like mundane things. I can't even imagine having to make those kinds of decisions. Yes, Jessica says I had a love-hate relationship with her. The decision to send Rylan had to have been hard. It would have been, because you're basically sending someone to die. You're hoping that they solve a world crisis before they do. Like, that's such a crazy thing. And you don't know. Like, they could have all died out there, and then you've just sent 3 people to their death for nothing. So, yeah, I don't know. That was so difficult. Mickey, yes, to decide to pave the Sahara, and I can't even decide what to make for dinner. Exactly. Yeah, that's me. Can't make basic daily decisions and like deciding things that would change the course of humanity. I don't know. Okay. Next question. It says, it is discovered that an organism is absorbing the sun's energy, which will be devastating to Earth and create a new ice age. Rylan nicknames the organism Astrophage and discovers that it can reproduce and use light energy to migrate from Venus to the sun. What did you think about this discovery, and could this organism exist in the real world? I think I kind of said it at the beginning, but like I thought it was really interesting the way that Andy Weir writes about alien life. I do think things like this could exist. Like I'm the kind of person that I believe that there's life out there, I just don't know that we'll ever find out what it is. But I do believe there's life out in the universe. Could it be astrophage? Could it be a bunch of like Rocky type aliens? I don't know. Maybe. I just thought it was really interesting. I hope that nothing like astrophage comes to Earth and eats our sun. That would be terrifying. But at least now we have a handbook on what to do if that should happen. Nikki, yes, I thought it was interesting that the world knew what was happening, yet life continued on seemingly like normal. I think that's just humans being humans, isn't it? Like we can know about something devastating going on, but we still have to like figure out what to make for dinner, and we have to go about our day, go to work, feed the kids, take the dog for a walk. Like those are things that we just have to do no matter what. So I think it's easier for us to not think too hard about what's happening in the grand scope of the earth and the world. I don't know. Yes, I thought that too. A regular secular mama says, I think it's so cool that they made a huge deal about discovering this tiny microscopic life form when there was an entire intelligent race out there. Exactly. Like we get so excited about every tiny thing we'd find in space, but like there could be intelligent life out there. Oops, my stuff is making sound. Can we turn that off? So I just thought that was really interesting too. Okay, the next question says the entire world comes together to try and solve this huge issue. What did you think about this behind the scenes look at the countries all working together? I think I kind of talked about that too when I was comparing the story to Don't Look Up. Like, I liked the hopefulness of like everyone coming together to figure out how to solve this problem. I'd like to think that that is what would happen. Like, we would be able to look past our differences and find a way to fix this problem that is threatening everyone. I liked the hopefulness in this story. Yes, Spencer, I wanted that too. Um, I would have loved to see more of what was happening back on Earth in the midst of all of this because it was so scary thinking about like, okay, our world might just we might all die. The globe is going to freeze. We're all going to die. I would have loved to know what they were doing in the meantime and how they were working behind the scenes while we're waiting for Rylan to send back information on what to do and solve the problem. So, um, yes, Jessica, it was kind of the least believable, but also I want to believe that if worst comes to worst, humanity can pull it together. Like, maybe it could possibly happen. Ugh, I don't know. Honestly, I think Don't Look Up is a more accurate representation of what we would do, but yeah, it's nice to have a positive potential version of that as well. Agree, Jessica. Current situation being what it is, you're probably right, but I'm going to hold on to that tiny little bit of hope I got from this book. Yeah, that's true. Regular secular mama says climate change is kind of an example of how poorly humanity works together. You know, that's true, Spencer, that they did focus entirely on what scientists were doing. We didn't get to see what the rest of the people were thinking or doing. So I think it's probably easier for the people working the problem to stay hopeful than it is for everyone else who's not working the problem. But yeah, I do wonder what it was like out in out not out on space, out back on Earth while he was out in space. So I would like to know more about that. Oh my gosh, let me turn my volume down. My gosh. Okay. The next question is, while it seems that Ryland is going to be a man alone, big surprise, he encounters an alien creature who is also trying to solve the astrophage issue. What did you think about the alien's appearance? I loved Rocky. I think is Rocky not everyone's favorite character? I feel like everyone universally who's read the story loves Rocky. Spencer, that's a good thought. Like, what do people on Earth know what's I mean, they did talk about it in class, so the kids in his class were aware of what was going on. Were they fully aware of how bad it was going to get? Maybe not entirely, but I mean, people did seem to know. But yes, Rocky, I think, was the best element of this entire story. This getting to know the Arrrghians and like how these aliens function and how they talk. I think that was also what made the audiobook so great, was that we got to hear Rocky's voice and what that sounded like. So I thought that was really interesting. Spencer, yes. Agree. Like, they might be aware of the problem, but they're not aware of how bad that problem is about to get. Yes. I think, and it is easy to just say, like, oh, it's just a little bit of a problem. Like, we'll be fine. Like, no, we won't be fine. Like, that's not going to be fine. But humans, what can we do? We want to not know these kinds of things, right? Like, we would rather not have to think about the bad that's happening and just focus on our own lives and getting through day to day. Like, yeah. But yes, I thought, yes, Mickey, the audiobook really did bring Rocky to life and made him like just such an awesome character. Like, I don't know, I just really loved their friendship, which is what the next question is. Let's talk about the friendship between Rylan and Rocky. Despite their differences, in what ways are they similar? I love that they're both alien, like, even though they're an alien, they're both scientists and they're both able to like think scientifically and work out these problems and come at those problems from very different ways. And I just thought that was really interesting. Spencer, I looked it up in the book because I wanted to know, like, how did they write that? It just looks like music notes. So I don't read music anymore. Like, I barely read it back when I used to do choir and stuff in high school. But like, I wonder if like that's accurate to what it sounded like in the book, or if they just did random music notes. I don't know. Does anyone know that? But yeah, it was very, very clever that it just looks like music. But I thought their friendship and the way they worked together was the best part of the story. I would read an entire like sequel. It was just like the two of them off on an adventure, solving a problem. What did you think about all of the science details on solving the astrophage problem? To be fair, I didn't understand any of it. So it kind of just all went over my head. And I thought, wow, that's neat. But I don't know that I understood anything that was happening as far as the science goes. You're right, Jessica. He probably did do the homework and made sure the notes were right. But I have no idea. Yes, Spencer, when he tried to help with the healing and he just made it worse. Yeah, Rocky was like, maybe that's how humans work, and thanks for trying, but please stop. So, yes, And like the way that Rocky eats, I found that to be really interesting. Just that for them, eating is like, we have to do this thing. Please just ignore it. It's gross. Kind of like how like we have to go to the bathroom. We wouldn't want anyone to watch that. So I kind of likened it to like, these are things that they have to do for their own health and their well-being, but like they don't want anyone to know about it or see it. So that was really gross, but interesting. I too related to Rocky eating. Like, ugh, I have to do this thing. Please don't tell me anything about it or look at me or anything. Yes. But yeah, for me, the science was probably the part of the story that I grasped the least. Like, I don't understand most of it. I find science interesting, but don't make me have to like think too hard about the details of it because then you're going to lose me. All right. Question 11. We eventually find out that Rylan did not volunteer for the mission. He got forced against his will by Strat. How did that change how Rylan perceived the mission? Do you think he was a coward like Strat accused him of, or was he simply scared? I don't think he was a coward. Like I said, I think if we went into the story and knew this from the beginning that he didn't choose it, it might have been easier to see him as a coward. But I think the way the story was structured helped us to see him as a person and where he was coming from and all of that. And I think he was just terrified. I mean, wouldn't you be? I would be scared out of my mind to be put in that situation and to not be able to like think about it and take my time to decide if this is something I wanted to do or not. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think he was a coward. Like, I think a coward probably wouldn't have been able to do what he did. Like, I don't know. I think he was just scared, which is understandable in that situation. Like anyone would be. All right, number 12 is Rylan makes a huge choice in the end, go back to Earth or save Rocky and his people. What do you think of his decision? I absolutely loved what he did there. That I think made the whole story for me. I literally teared up when they were saying goodbye to each other, and when he was like looking back into space and could just see this little dot and knew that that was Rocky. Like, I had so many feelings and emotions. And so when he was like, I have to turn around and help, I cheered. I thought it was wonderful. I loved that whole situation going back and how excited and happy Rocky was that he came back. Uh, uh, I had so many feelings and emotions reading that. It just, that was so happy. And that way the story ended was perfect. Like, I cannot come up with a better ending than that. That he went back to live with Rocky and that they were like building him this dome to live in where he could be safe and helping him to have food to eat. The me burgers. I don't know how I feel about that. That was a little weird and creepy, but hey, do what you got to do to survive, right? I loved that. I loved the whole ending and that he's still a teacher and that he was teaching these little baby Arrrghians and just loved it. I don't think I've ever smiled that hard and teared up that much reading a book. Like, and I get really emotional when I'm reading. Like, I get very attached to characters and all of that. So like, I thought it was just wonderful. Loved it. Yes, he was like their pet cat. He was very much like the Arrrghians' new pet, and they were all just like so enamored with him. Loved it. I love that he decided to do that and not just go home. Like, I don't know. I think if he had gone back to Earth, he would have regretted it his whole life. I think it would have just broken him to know that he left them. So, yeah. I loved that. Okay, so we all know by now, I think, that they're making an adaptation of this book, and right now we know Ryan Gosling is cast as Ryland, which I don't know. I've been talking to my husband, like also Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard is working on this movie, which has made me feel so good about it. I don't know if anyone else knows who Drew Goddard is, but he made Cabin in the Woods. I'm like, what is the name of this movie? He was one of the writers for Cabin in the Woods, which is my favorite horror movie of all time. He also wrote for Buffy and Angel, I think. So I trust his writing skills. I think he also made The Martian, right? So he can handle this, I think. So I don't know that I love Ryan Gosling in that role. Although my husband, when I was telling him about it, was like, you shouldn't worry because he is a good actor overall. Like he's an actor. He's not just some, like, there are some actors who I would have definitely not wanted to see in this role. Like, I don't know, Channing Tatum would have been not a good choice. I'm still not sure how I feel about Ryan Gosling, but I'm not going to give up my hope that this would be a good movie. But I can't decide who I would want in that role. Like, I was trying to think, okay, well, if not Ryan Gosling, who? And like, I don't know. But I do feel like Ryan Gosling is a decent enough actor that I think he can pull this off. Julie, yes, I agree. I thought it was smart to not give Ryland any human connections back on Earth to miss, so we as readers didn't feel as conflicted about him staying with his new bestie Rocky. That's a good point. Like, I think if he'd had a family that he'd left behind on Earth, that might have been harder to reconcile. But yeah, I like that it was just him and his new best friend that he couldn't leave behind. Mickey, I literally said that the other day when I was talking about this with my husband, that like somebody has to capture the snarkiness. Who could capture the snarkiness? And he said Ryan Reynolds. And I was like, maybe. I couldn't decide how I felt about that either. It was still not quite right. But I think his voice would be better overall, if that makes sense. Just his voice. Like, I don't know. But Ryan himself bought the rights after I didn't know that part, though, that he's really enthusiastic about this role. Okay, well, that does make me a little more hopeful. I just can't picture it. I'm struggling to visualize him in that role, which is just weird for me. I don't know. But I am definitely going to watch the heck out of that movie. I'm very excited to see it. I want to see when it comes out, like if they've captured what I want them to capture. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm hopeful. So does anyone have any other thoughts that they want to add or talk about the story? Jake Gyllenhaal. I can't picture that either. I don't know. I don't know what I pictured. I'm sitting here like, what did I visualize in my head? I don't know. But it wasn't Ryan Gosling. I didn't have like a clear actor. I don't always do that. Sometimes when I read, I have a very distinct, like, this is the actor I would want to portray this person. I didn't have that for this. Maybe it's because I listened to it as an audio, so I already had a voice. I don't know. I don't think I'd want Chris Pratt in this either. I don't know. I wish I'd pictured better what I thought he would look like in my head. Yeah, Danny, truly. I think whoever did the voice acting in the audiobook should just do the role. I don't even know what he looks like, but his voice is what I want portrayed on the screen. Amy says, I think we get a better idea of what we don't want rather than what we do. Exactly. That is my problem here. Like, I know it's not Ryan Ryan Gosling. I don't know. I'm not going to give up on him yet, though. I'm not going to say that that's a bad choice, because maybe he'll be brilliant. I don't know yet. We're going to have to wait and see. So, but yeah, like the voice actor was just so spectacular. I just want that on screen, whatever that looks like. I'm very curious to see how they do Rocky, and like what's that going to look like, because that could be either amazing or terrible. I don't know. So I'm very curious to see that. Like, I'm dying for a trailer. I know we're probably not going to get one for a good year, but I would love that. Yes, Spencer, I do. I want to go look up anything else that man has narrated, because that was like the best listening experience I've ever had. And I want more of it. Like, this was the book for me, I think, that cinched like me wanting to experience more audiobooks, because if this one was so good, what other amazing audiobooks do I need to go seek out? Like, I need more of that. So I'm looking forward to discovering new amazing audiobooks in the future. So why don't we go ahead and pivot a little bit and talk about the February book club read. We're going to be reading The Chosen and the Beautiful by Naivo this month. This is a Great Gatsby retelling. This one is focused on Jordan Baker and her character. In this story, she is a Vietnamese queer woman, and she's adopted. So in this society, she's seen as an outsider, like an exotic pet. And so she's coming to this as an outsider looking in. I'm going to have to look this up as an audio and see if I can find it as an audiobook, because I'm just curious now to try everything as an audiobook and just see what it sounds like. But I'm really looking forward to reading this. I'm probably not going to start it for another week or two, because this is short and I don't want to finish it too early. Julie wants to know, do you think it's necessary to have read The Great Gatsby before you read this? I haven't started this yet, so I don't know, but I want to say that this is less of a Gatsby retelling than it is a character in a society who is an outsider looking in. So I don't think you need to have read Great Gatsby. I think if you have, you'll probably know more of the little details and things in the background. But I want to say that after reading the synopsis of this, this feels more like a coming-of-age story set in the Jazz Age, and it says it's coming-of-age story full of magic, mystery, glittering excess, and introduces a major new literary voice. So I don't think you have to have read Gatsby first. If you don't want to have to read Gatsby first, but you want the background, I would suggest just watching the movie. That'll give you enough background information about who the characters are that you can then just read this. I mean, I would always recommend reading Gatsby because I love Gatsby. I think it's a great classic, and it's fairly short, so it's a pretty easy read. But if you don't want to and you just want to be able to read this, I would say just watch the movie. I really liked the newer movie, that had Leonardo DiCaprio in it as Gatsby. I thought that was a pretty good adaptation. So that would be a good way to get the vibe of the story and know all the characters and everything. But I don't think this is going to be the kind of story where you're going to miss out on everything if you didn't read it first. So I'm actually reading another Gatsby retelling right now. I'm also reading Beautiful Little Fools by Gillian Cantor, which is, I think, more of a story that you needed to read Gatsby first, because that one, I think, is a bit more involved with the characters. It's a retelling that is focusing on the women in the story. So, like, you're getting the backstories for Daisy and Jordan Baker and who's the other one? Catherine, I think is her name. She's the sister of Myrtle. So you're getting like their backstories, but also it's a murder mystery because you also have a detective trying to piece together like who is the one that killed Gatsby. So like it's a really good retelling. I think that one is a little more like you need to know the background first, whereas I think this, I don't think you have to have that much background knowledge of Gatsby before you read this. I could be completely wrong, but that's the vibe I'm getting from it. So, but yeah, if you haven't read Gatsby before and you want to do that first, absolutely. I think it's one of the easier classics to read and get into. I think Fitzgerald's writing is really easy to read while still being like really great writing. So I would recommend it. And we'll probably do the live show. I haven't actually looked. Let me look at my calendar quick while I'm sitting here thinking about it. Oh, you know what? We'll probably do it on March 5th and just plan for that. So March 5th would be our potential day for the live show discussion for The Chosen and the Beautiful. And of course, we have the Discord group that I've already set up the I just split it in half again. I think that's the easiest way to do this. So the first, I don't even know, 11 chapters, I think, for the beginning, and then the second half of the book so that you can discuss without spoilers. So that is all set up for whenever people start reading. I'm going to start it next week because I have some other things I want to get to first. I'm trying to decide if I want to reread Gatsby, but I read it not that long ago, so I think it's still fresh enough in my mind that I don't have to go back and reread. I literally just Googled book club questions for Project Hail Mary, and it was the first one that came up. It's book club chat, book club questions for Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And it gives like a synopsis at the beginning and then goes into the discussion questions. So you can look that up. But yeah, whenever I need to find discussion questions for book club, I usually just put the name of the book and then discussion questions. Julie, if you want to send me a message on Instagram, if you're on Instagram, I can send you a link to the Discord. I try not to post it in public places because you get some spam when you do that, because anyone can click on the link. So if you send me a private message on Instagram or send me an email or whatever, and I'll send you a link to the Discord. So yeah, if anyone's interested in joining the Discord that isn't yet, send me a message and I will give you the link. Well, Mickey, you can pop in and watch it after it's live and leave a message after you watch the video. We'll miss you. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with me and gushing about Project Hail Mary. It's been a blast. And I'll see you guys next month when we talk about The Chosen and the Beautiful. Happy reading. Bye.